Locheilside. Travelling westwards, you're passing through a landscape that was very familiar to Prince Charles Edward Stuart, the grandson of the deposed James II of England and 7th of Scotland. In 1745, Bonnie Prince Charlie, as he was better known, arrived here having travelled from Italy via France with the aim of regaining the throne for his father in the Stuart dynasty. He raised an army and successfully passed through Scotland and much of England, confronting and winning battles against the government's troops. But he turned back at Derby rather than continue to London and was eventually beaten at Culloden. The next stop, Glenfinnan, marks the beginning and the end of his Jacobite uprising of 1745 to 1746. Fiona went to Glenfinnan to find out more.
Standing here at the edge of Locheil, just behind the Glenfinnan monument with Professor Hugh Cheap, a Gaelic historian. So, Professor Cheap, tell us why this monument's here in the first place. What's so significant about it?
There seem to be all levels of significance in a way. It's regarded now as the Prince's Monument, the monument to the 1745, the monument to Prince Charles Edward Stuart arriving here, raising his standard, the standard of rebellion here, and so on. And I think it's always very helpful perhaps to reflect that it's almost a war memorial. It was the dedication of the monument when it was built in 1815 was in memory of those who had fought, died and suffered in the 1745 in the Jacobite Wars.
So is this where Prince Charles raised the standard?
It's more a kind of rhetorical device that you're standing here, look around you, traveller, and be aware that here, within this amphitheatre in the hills, this is where the events started, this is where the personalities were, and so on. I'd always been intrigued to know, well, what did people really think in this district when Prince Charles Edward Stuart arrived amongst them? And after a great deal of digging, I did find out quite a lot about popular opinion in the area, and of course they were dismayed and appalled when Prince Charles Edward Stuart arrived here in July 1745 with no French army, no supplies, no forces and so on. And it was up to them, it was up to everyone here.
He went off quite a distance from here.
Just an amazing story of military prowess that is unrivalled at the time. In other words, he depended on a unity of attitude and support amongst his troops, which he eventually got, and of mobility and high speed. And it was a highly mobile force. And of course, what you see when you look at the maps and get to know what armies were set against him was that he could outmaneuver them all, which of course he continued to do, and in a way right down into England he'd outmaneuver the other forces, and the decision to turn back was a measured judgment that it was all going to go against them in the future.
And what happened then?
April 1746 they were brought to battle, and it might be said that it was much the prince's fault and insistence with a depleted and exhausted force and surrounded force on the moor of Culloden, and where there was a massacre and a slaughter, and which I would dare to say resonates still with us all.
And of course, I believe he sailed from not too far from here as well. He got out of Scotland eventually, didn't he, after that a rather disastrous year in the end?
Well, he was in this area for about 5 months as a fugitive, escaping from Culloden, riding over land to Arisaig, escaping to the islands, then back and forth in this particular district of the so-called Rough Bounds, and left from Locheilside on the 19th of September 1746 on a French ship. And I would rather gather from contemporary popular opinion that everyone was pretty relieved to see the back of him.